Good afternoon. I'm Ed Pozzuoli, CEO of Tripp Scott, and today we are so honored to have somebody who has the courage and passion as a CEO of Goya Foods, Bob Unanue. Bob, you wrote the book Blessed Donald J. Trump and the Spiritual War, and you've involved yourself with the cultural wars in the United States. And first I want to thank you for having the courage to do that. But how did you step into that, taking on some of these really hot issues, all the while, running a very successful company?
Well, Ed, thanks for having me. Thanks for an invitation, and it's so great to be here in Florida, where I spent several years of my life in Pinecrest, and it's always great to come back. You make plans, and God laughs. I had no plans of writing a book. In fact, I don't even read a lot. There's so much information that comes at you. And actually, one of our credit managers once said, "Believe none of what you read and half of what you see." But we were in the middle of COVID. This is July 9th, 2020, and I wanted. We were in an essential business as a food company, an essential business. Right. But work is essential. You need a reason to get up every day. God, family, work. My father, who had passed away 48 years ago, said your goal in life is salvation. And I've been working since a kid with this family-owned business, Goya Foods, in Brooklyn, and we're all over the world now. And we're in the middle of COVID. We're working, thank God, but our spirit, the middle class, the working class, was devastated and everybody was very fearful. Everybody's afraid of, you got to stay 6 feet apart, the mask, you got to vaccinate and all this other stuff, and everybody was very, very fearful. In the Bible, 365 times it makes reference to be not afraid. So here we were working, and I wanted to give a gift to this country, which we, as immigrants, there's three things you hang on to: music, language, and food. So we were without food. Our food banks were empty, and we have a history of giving food. But I wanted to give a special gift to this country of a couple million pounds of food. It ended up being close to 5 million, and not just in this country, but in countries around the world, because the world was in crisis. So I wanted President Trump. I wanted to give this gift to the chief executive, and President Trump would come to Texas, and so we are invited to the White House to speak, and also as a commissioner on the White House Commission on Hispanic Prosperity. By the way, since the Harris and Biden administration fired the whole commission, I don't know if they want prosperity, they like Hispanics, or like prosperities for Hispanics, but they fired all of us. So anyway, I'm in the Rose Garden, and this kid from Jersey, you're from Jersey, what exit? I was born in Teaneck, New Jersey. And I had been, by the way, with the Obamas, with the Let's Move campaign, with My Plate campaign for the Hispanic community. And I introduced President Obama, and words of praise on him. That didn't shake anybody up. But I'm talking about President Trump, our gift, and I say the Holy Spirit puts this word blessed on my lips. I'm talking, I go backwards a bit, and I say, by the way, we're blessed to have a leader like President Trump, who's a builder. And our country was blessed. And it's as if I would have shouted fire in the theater. Immediately we had the backlash, the cancel culture, hatred, threats, and everything. We were boycotted. And
by the way, my wife ran out and bought 2 cases of extra Goya food at that time, just so you're aware.
Well, we were there to, it wasn't like I was endorsing anybody. It wasn't. I wanted to help this country, which was in bunkers, fearful. The supply chain was falling apart. Right. We had good inventory, so I had planned ahead, and I saw a food problem coming. I didn't see COVID, so we had 3 months of inventory, which most accountants would say, hey, you're crazy, that's all money tied up in that. But it allowed us to, during this crisis where everybody closed down,
Right.
is to have that food available, and we made it available. But by saying blessed, which is on my lips by the Holy Spirit, we were attacked viciously. But what happened, like your wife and yourself, after AOC, people like Julian Castro, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and other elites called for a boycott of our company, which is thousands of people all over the United States, in the Caribbean, in Europe, to kill us because we say blessed. And this other this counter boycott came out. It was a boycott. People went out and started buying our food. And so we did so well. Later on, I commented that we made AOC Employee of the Month for raising our sales so much. But at that moment, this book is about, and when God gives you this platform and tells you what to do, you cannot hesitate. And you can't be afraid. They called for my apology. I said, hell no, I'm not. I was on Laura Ingraham. I was on TV for a couple weeks and got this amazing platform, which I didn't ask for. And, the earned media from that, good and bad, was in the hundreds, over 100 million, I think. So I felt that I was on a call to a mission as a instrument to send out a message that, we're moving away from God. We got to love each other, not hate each other. The amount of hate that is poured out against not only us, but the president, just for me saying blessed. And since then, the Cuban poet Jose Marti said, there are those born to love and build, others to hate and destroy. And this is what's destroying our world, is destroying this nation. And so, and I believe the Holy Spirit has in a way anointed and chosen Donald Trump to lead this country closer to God. I mean, he takes it on the chin every day. There's so much hatred spewed at him, which is pure evil. It's really demonic. And he loves his country. Otherwise, why do it? He could be, parked on a beach somewhere and tanning or whatever.
Bob, to drill down on your message, because I think it's an optimistic one, right? And so succinctly, the message is about what, as far as you're concerned, from an optimistic standpoint about our country, about where we need to go?
I'm very hopeful, and I'm hopeful in this way because with the Latino population, which has grown, in 2016 it was 20-some percent, 2020 it was 30-some percent. We're close to 50% now with the Hispanic community because we've been beaten up, but more than that in the economy, more than that with human trafficking. And it's something that we've done with Goya Cares, is raise awareness. I was involved in the film Sound of Freedom.
Right. Raise
awareness about human trafficking. It's hundreds of billion-dollar business with drugs also. We are the middleman. Tara Lee Rodas testified before Congress April 26, 23, that the U.S. is the middleman. We're bringing children and women. Women are 70% of people trafficked, and the Latino is the biggest victim. The U.S. is the biggest consumer. So this is pure evil. And she said we're the middleman. We're bringing children at pennies on the dollar, selling them off to sponsors. They're dropping 40 kids at an address. It's not a home, it's a business. Last year, Tara Rhoda said there were 85,000 children missing. This year, the Inspector General says over 320,000.
Do you believe that's being encouraged by the open border policy under Biden-Harris as opposed to the more strict border restrictions under Trump?
It's not only encouraged, we're importing. We are actively importing these people. We're going to countries. We're giving money to the NGOs. The NGOs are going to countries and saying, "Come to America," and then they're given phones to trace, to message, to vote. There's two things that move this world on the bad side: money and power. Like the genie said to Aladdin, "Never drink from the cups of money or power; you'll never be satisfied." We are profiting There's no doubt that the cartels aren't making this money alone. The United States, Mexico, other countries are profiting off of the sale of our children and women. And it's amazing that someone like Kamala Harris, or Kamala Harris, however you want to put it, as a woman of color, is presiding over the exploitation and the abuse of 70% women that are being trafficked and abused. The kids are being sold for sex, for slavery, for body parts. And they say, oh, that's not real. It's real. And we're profiting from it. So it's not just, oh, we're encouraging. We're actively importing, in my view.
And so the idea would be to bad policy ends up with bad results, whether it's human trafficking, like you just pointed out, or the influx of drugs, or even terrorism through our open southern border.
Well, I think we're also looking for not only the profit, but the control. How do we stay in office? How do we stay in power? We bring in these millions of people, and we say, hey, you got to vote this way. I think, going back to optimism, I think there's hope that the Latino community, very divided in all of these countries in the world,
right?
And that we are having.
It's not a monolith community.
No, but we're monolithic. We share this. Share the same values: God, family, work, and freedom, and we can do that. One thing I'd like the president to do, and I was recently in El Salvador with Bukele, is, and we're talking about tariffs. I'm not a big believer in tariffs. It doesn't make for an efficient
right.
country. But we have a GSP, Generalized System of Preference, where tariffs are imposed on some and not others, depending on. But our friends should fall under a GSP, tariff-free, and penalize in a way the countries that are here to do us harm. And there's a lot of them out there. We used to live in a very safe world, a great economy, and the Latino community and every community is seeing that we have to work harder to earn less and to feed someone else. So, I have hope, though, that with these shared values, but that is only valid if we have not just the president, but Congress, Senate, House.
So where do you think
in the right direction?
The election's 40 days out or less, and where do you think the Hispanic voters are going to be when election day comes?
They're moving toward Trump. Toward 50%. I think 50% is a number that wins. I think the black community, also black men, because they're getting hammered in the economy. But again, the trafficking, the exploitation and abuse, we're also being used, and it's only going to get worse if this administration gets in there. You have a woman who is exploiting women. 70% of people trafficked are women. And that's got to come out that, these people, and unrealized capital gains. She's just saying stuff to get elected. Who was it? Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank said, he called the campaign and said, what are you doing with this unrealized capital gains? That's going to destroy. Don't worry, be happy. That'll never pass in Congress. And Sanders saying, she's just saying stuff to get elected.
Yeah, even Bernie Sanders came out and said that.
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
So,
she happened to be in the Senate when Bernie Sanders was there, and she was ranked to the left of him, right?
Right.
But Bob, let me switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about hope through education, because I think that's an important point, and I want to leave on that plus Goya Cares. Explain some of those activities that you're involved with.
Well, Rachel Campos Duffy is involved in Hope through Education. It's a great thing. And when I was growing up in my second grade class, St. Ambrose in Cheverly, Maryland, there were 71 kids in our class. And 10% of kids are classified: dyslexia, ADD, ADHD, But today, if you got to educate 20 kids with 3 teachers, 2 or 3 teachers, and an IEP, an individualized educational program, it's much more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the public school systems are failing with the agenda, the different agendas. You know, we need to educate our children, and the thing of vouchers, of having schools that are not owing to the government for agendas and things like that, that it can be a free, open system of education where you're going to get the best teachers. I mean, the teachers are great, but for example, you had Randy Weingarten closed down our schools for 2 years.
Yeah.
Created all the mental health that we're finding today. Kids aren't valuing themselves.
It was less about kids' issues. It was more about adult issues for her. But to talk about what your involvement is, Hope Through Education. Talk about that, because look, we're sitting in Florida. Florida has the greatest set of choices for parents educationally, both opportunity scholarships, which you talked about, vouchers, charter schools, and other schools, and it seems to work really well here, frankly. But the control is with the parent. So talk about Hope Through Education, what your involvement is.
Look, in Florida, where I've lived, things worked. We stayed open during COVID.
So did we.
The schools were open,
Yeah.
and you see the difference. You know, Florida prospered.
Right.
And Texas, I'm in Texas. Texas didn't follow quite as quickly, but also Texas prospered. And you know, I think the future is in that. We're losing our freedom. We're losing our education. It gives us freedom. And why educate yourself, first of all, if the government's going to say, stay in your bunker, don't get up, you have no reason to get up every day. We need a purpose. And what happened in Cuba, what's happening in Venezuela, if you educate yourself, but it doesn't make a difference unless you're part of the few controlling the many. We're all going to be victims. So education gives you freedom. It's the most important thing that we can have. And you know, that's why we're involved in that. You know, we're involved in the Sound of Freedom, which led to Goya Cares, about alerting ourselves to all the horrors of trafficking, which I've become educated on, having 6 kids and 14 grandkids myself. But it's pure evil. And then the mental health that has come from
the
this.
impacts, right?
Yeah. In The Sound of Freedom, we go, Tim Ballard, played by Jim Caviezel, goes to the jungles of Colombia to rescue children. Very brave. But imagine any child, any young person, or anybody can save a life by just reaching across and saying, you matter, I love you, leave this kid alone. Takes a tremendous amount of courage, but imagine you can save a life. So that's some of the messaging we're trying to get out there, and all this can go against the great evil that's out there. But you know, if we don't get our country back in order, there's so many great organizations with great hearts, but it's not gonna, the greed and the power is so powerful. We need to have strong leadership. We need to get closer to God. And that's what this book is about. It's the spiritual war, moving closer to God. It's the only battle that can be won is with love and caring for your neighbor.
And I think on that note, we'll close out. Bob, I want to thank you so much for not only talking the talk, but also putting your principles in action, whether it's protecting those who are less fortunate, subject to some of these evils you pointed out today, whether it's driving educational choice, giving that power to parents, because education is a great equalizer, but protecting our great way of life, whether it's family, faith, and work, and the purpose in life. I want to thank you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ed, and I have great optimism, because I know when push comes to shove, you know, we're going to move closer to God, and we're a great country, and we're hardworking, and we have purpose. you know, we have to keep purpose in the every day that we get up.
I think that's a great message. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Ed.